record. I am writing my book in front of you. My book was originally called The Application of Integrity. I wanted to know what happened if you tried. Good is such a subjective word. I wanted to try to be positive and focus on positivity. And what happened if you tried to be positive despite the circumstances? Nobody has taught me the way or how to write a book or anything, how to go through and navigate the circumstances that I've been through. It's all a self-assignment, self-learning journey. And after my Buick exploded and losing my children, how I made sense of everything and burns and being different from everyone is I had been writing this book for 4 years as I had been taken off to Detroit and protesting, and after we lost in state and federal court and what have you, and being a mad crazy lady, and going from living out of my car to my dream home and building my dream home on a canal. And I always wanted running water. Now it's bringing me more peace than ever. And I did it. I did everything, or I wouldn't be doing this recording. But now I can go back and edit these things. And my friend said something about getting someone to write it, a writer or something, but I want to clean it so it's presentable to an editor. I don't know about hiring any kind of writer or anything like that. But if you build it, you know, they will come. If you prepare for the opportunity, it's better than not being ready and the opportunity be there. But I want to be ready to be ready. And it will happen just like everything else has happened. So I have to continue writing the book. All I have to do is train and go to the gym, train in dance training, train to be a better instructor. And I worked really hard for that, so that everything that I do in my life is what I was going to do anyway. And integrity, without me writing this book, thinking that you don't have to do anything, lonely and drinking and lashing out and blacking out, and I've never ever drank alcohol. Throughout this whole book, I did not drink alcohol for years because my children's father was an alcoholic. So it really hurts me that I really showed my ass and really hurt people around me from blacking out and being such a traumatic, dangerous person. I don't know what I did, I don't know what I said, but it really hurt some people. So integrity, there's certainly not a whole lot of integrity behind drinking like that. So I'm not meaning to. Espresso martinis, you know, might as well be drinking vodka and Red Bull. So chapter 4 got cut off, but it is on my Instagram. I did both of them live. I'm thinking I don't have to do it live as long as it's recorded. I'll upload it. It takes a little bit longer. Reality and Symbolism was chapter 4. I'm going to read it really quickly. It's not my favorite chapter. It's a little bit of crying out that I'm different. We'll see. So Reality and Symbolism is chapter 4. As a conscious, spiritual, mystical being, though I hate subjective, general, fluffy words, parentheses, I have to ask myself, we all do, comma, we all do, and we all should be transcending the subjective spiritual talk to understand there's a great objective science behind these holy scriptures. I should say these holy parables, symbolic parables, you know, these holy parable scriptures. I have to ask myself, we all do. What are we asking ourselves, Chrissy? So I'm glad we're going back over this. So we should just start. We're not asking ourselves anything. We all should transcend these subjective words. Fine, I'll take it. This would be a great book to bring up the debates of Christianity and their literate interpretations, creating havoc and wars all over the planet. Well, verse the literary parable, symbolic interpretations of the scriptures. And there's a lot of people that would agree our wars are fought over our religious and spiritual beliefs. Jordan Peterson explains that meaning comes from carrying the greatest burden and load that you can ever dream of, bearing your cross. Typo. That is responsibility, and that is the pinnacle of meaning. It would certainly be a great responsibility and great cross to bear to speak about such uncommon correlations between the stars and the religious texts and their interpretations. Didn't the Christ say something like, "The world didn't like me, and the world won't like you either"? I'm turning the table on these money changers, as Jesus said to do. And I'd say because I always called myself a pirate back then, studying sovereignty and admiralty law. Better leave that for another chapter. Nobody would believe me if I wrote a book the way I wanted to, in the name of my children, Shauna and Tristan. Just write a book about you and your story, they say. It's not just my story, it's everyone's. I'm not just here for me, neither were my children. That would be the greatest zooming out perspective, wouldn't it? I can tell you it's enough to keep my crazy ass going, knowing I could fall in line with my teachers before me. Tyrants, habitually programmed by their subconscious talk and behavior, that they manifest personalities that become resentful and narcissistic. Who is that? Why are we talking about tyrants now? I'm rambling about something. Somebody's hurting me. Pirates and tyrants, I'm going to say, of the courts. No. I know I'm talking about mundane, what Harry Potter would call the muggles, that don't see what the Bible is trying to depict as the sun travels the ecliptic, as we go through the seasons. The symbology of each of these characters that are in the sky and that are within ourselves. I have a book called The Cell Salts of Salvation that correlate with all the zodiac. And I have this huge pile of books here. So, The Biggest Lie Ever Told, an exposition of the deceptions, fallacies, and misconceptions of monotheism, astronomy, mythology, and religion. Dense book. Marcus Aurelius, The Gospel and the Stars, How to Understand Your Bible, The Devil's Pulpit. It's not in here. Cell salts. Where are my cell salts? Here we go. Cell salts. And you'll see there's actually a connection between the biology and ecology, our chemistry, our biochemistry. So, a good book to have there. It's not woo-woo. This is a science illustrated in symbology. Pretty freaking cool, if you ask me. And that's what I'm trying to write in this book, that I've been following all these signs now that I call Looking for Signs. The application of integrity, trying to try. What happens if you try? And seeing all these signs that there was something to this. And something would happen on the eclipses, on the new moons, on the full moons, on the conjunctions, on the whatever aspects. So I'm going to take this sentence out of there. I would say something more general, like we are programmed, as they say, programmed by our environment and the people in our environment. We are, well, most people would say we are indoctrinated. Religion is indoctrinated. Religion is indoctrinated. Um, Indoctrination. I could say to read this book, you have to have an open mind. But it does say on the next line here, a reason I wanted to write this book, maybe we'll make that one paragraph. Religion is indoctrination. The reason I wanted to write this book, really had to write this book, is to apply what I know, not being resentful and narcissistic, in hopes of positive outcomes. Narcissistic as a result of things I can't control. That's that internal locus control. Oh, we're about to hit that in the next chapter. Nice. As a result of things I can't control, in hopes of positive outcomes. So that whole sentence is going to go. A reason I wanted to write this book, really had to write this book. I'm going to put like a dash there. It's got a couple commas. Really dash, had to write this book, is to apply what I know. Not being resentful and narcissistic as a result of things I can't control. But work in hopes of positive outcomes. What makes me different? I was told there are two types of people in the world. I had learned somewhere, maybe Sadhguru, who explained that there are two types of people in the world. An internal locus-controlled human and an external locus-controlled human. Or an external locus of control. And I always known it as control. I wonder why I put human here. An internal locus controlled human. I see locus. Two types of people. Human. Let's say controlled person. I don't know if I want to use the word human anymore. Just because we use people, person, it works. I also call this lesson Chapter 5, Locus of Control, How to Spot a Narcissist.
Here's what I found from Bold.com.
Nope.
One of the most...
Thank you. Okay, here we go. Chapter 5, Locus of Control, How to Spot a Narcissist. My goal today is to work until 2:10. So we got 30 more minutes on the clock. My goal is 45 minutes a day. Or at least twice a week. To build the habit of doing it every day so that we work towards our goals every day, just like I work towards getting in the gym every day. It's a habit you have to create. Reading is a habit I have to create. It's not something I just do. I'm used to moving around so much. So, Chapter 5, Locus of Control, How to Spot a Narcissist. To have external locus control would be the external forces or environment dominate, control, and influence how a person habitually thinks, feels, and behaves. Like when you black out drunk and you are impulsive because you're making up crap about your environment and your circumstances. Where a man or a woman who has internal locus control would act, feel, and think, moving as if they have influence over the manifested world around them. So I'm going to say that clean. To have external locus control would be that the external forces or environment dominate, control, and influence how a person habitually thinks, feels, and behaves. Where a man or woman who has internal locus control would act, feel, and think, moving as if they had influence over the manifested world around them. Or I would hear it like, oh, my mother was this, external locus control. I'll never have a good job. I'll never have a good car. This is my life. Or an internal locus control would say, well, maybe if I do something differently, I could have a different outcome. Coming from inside, making changes. For example, an external locus controlled man or woman would say things like, if only I had the right job, if only my mother wasn't this, if only I could afford a decent car. If just everything was right around them, then things would be okay. There are no control over their circumstances. They are just dealt a shit hand. A woman or man with internal locus control would sound more like, maybe if I do this a little differently, I can have a different outcome. than those before me. I could try this. Maybe when I do this, this could happen and this could work. There's maybe instinctual, maybe learned, but a willingness to change thinking patterns and behavior at the cost of risking different unknown outcomes through taking inspired action. There is maybe instinctual, maybe learned, but a willingness to change thinking patterns. I think I need a comma in there, but thinking patterns is what we're talking about. And our correlated behavior. Because what we think is how we behave at the cost of risking different unknown outcomes through taking inspired action. At the cost of risking different unknown outcomes. So we don't know what's going to happen if we try and do something differently. But we want to make change. That's what you have to do. Quite an identifier if you ask me about how to spot an unhealthy narcissism. So if we knew that humans consequently think and behave accordingly to their habitual programming, couldn't we do something about it? And couldn't we use the knowledge and science to support in quantum theory that the world does work in this way? And are arguments built on spiritual or religious grounds? Are our arguments, do they serve two different crowns at the church and the crowns in the courtrooms and crowns of the government? Okay, so that's three different crowns. So I don't know why I said two there. That's a little deep. I mean to say, as a free thinker, not indoctrinated, but a studier of the Bible and sacred texts and disciplined practices of my own account, we say that there is an ethical part to our decisions based on what? And if spiritual, spirit meaning the breath and life comes with breath. Now, some people would say spirit comes with breath. Now, it also has some, does abortion, sure, not become a life journey based on the greater good of the mother as the individual and the human society at large. Zooming out, there is no death. All is mind. Death is a transition, the involution and evolution of all things, the subjective intangible to the manifested physical objective. I'm just saying that that's the spiritual way of looking at it. The mystical way beyond that, I would say, it's completely apparent how the earth, reality, whatever you choose to call your experience, is an evolving involution and evolutionary process of the death and rebirth cycle. But I digress. But it would be a great hope. But it would be a great hope to be on stage with Jordan Peterson one day on behalf of our conviction of the literary archetypical interpretations of religious parables. Jordan Peterson is a father many had never had in this country. Unfortunately, the media has given many youth the idea he is a right-wing Nazi. And Candace Owens just did something on him that she wasn't the biggest fan of him either, that he's been a little bit projecting all his truth and wisdom onto everybody so willingly. I'm learning. I don't know nothing, and I need to keep my mouth shut now. And yes, I'm looking for a beautiful, handsome baseball player to raise beautiful dancer, baseball player children, and that's all I need to say about the world, and just work on my own things. He teaches, and tolerance is so important, right? Tolerance is important because it also reflects on who we are as character, and I don't like who I am when I'm a perfectionist. He teaches that being an internal locus-controlled person and taking responsibility for your actions are more beneficial to your outcomes than inaction or unhealthy, unconscious, habitual action and behaviors, like drinking. This is how things work. This is according to the mystics as well. Jordan Peterson does an illuminating job on his biblical series lectures, which I like. We speak a lot. He speaks a lot of the symbology, which I study. People nowadays want to associate immediately and how indoctrinated by generations education or churches to do so habitually associate with every human being they encounter now a political view and a political party. They also think astrology is dumb. Can I put that? Everyone hates astrology and I'm going out of my mind and everybody thinks I'm crazy. But I won't add that. We'll just talk about political views. Oops, well, another teacher, Robert Kiyosaki, spoke on London Real how he is absolutely not political, that it does not affect him. Why? Well, certainly the millionaire who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad knows how these systems work. Still, if you do not know where you stand politically, don't go out. If you do, you better let everyone know you voted, but keep your opinion to yourself. So here we go. Starting chapter 6. Chapter 4 and 5 should have been on my last recording. It is on Instagram, but we did a good recap. We're starting on chapter 6, White Privilege Debunked. Now, when I was writing this was a really big political time with Black Lives Matter and so much stuff going on in the world, which really segregated how everybody looked at each other. People couldn't even look at each other. It was the craziest thing. So up here in Detroit, especially, it's just a different world up here. So I always said I was the poorest person I knew. My parents didn't own their house. I'd rented from awful places and cockroaches everywhere and made awful money and couldn't get better jobs. And so because I was a mother, I wouldn't be able to have other opportunities. As soon as they heard I was a mom, and they're not supposed to ask that. What do you lie? So I, however, am writing a book, so I won't. It says, disclaimer, white privilege debunked, chapter 6. I have been subject to a failing system, one who's put broken, unhealthy men or poverty and humans of all color in revolving door prisons. Well, that's true. Now, I think I haven't been in prison, so we need to work that up a little bit. Into a failing system, one that accumulated tens of thousands of debt for a education that couldn't support me. A system who's put broken, unhealthy men, or I shouldn't say broken, unhealthy men, even healthy men, but still unhealthy men or poverty. I used to say, just poverty stricken is the word that comes to mind. Poverty stricken. The editor can help us with that. I'll find an editor, I'm sure. If I'm making it this far, we're gonna find an editor. We'll say to people, I just need an editor for my book, and then things will happen. We're doing great. We got 20 minutes to hit our goal. We only have to do this twice a week to hit my goal by the end of the year. So that's pretty, and to really exceed my goal by the end of the year is doing this twice a week. So I'm proud of myself. I've already made it over halfway through. I have witnessed Judge Leslie Kim Smith dismiss my children being burned alive from a random faulty vehicle explosion as if a bomb was strapped to my vehicle, quotations, as attorneys explained. And teachers who have historical references and evidence that this isn't our U.S. government at all. Now, I went down the rabbit hole, but we got to see where it goes. I do want to find out if I'm crazy or not. We are going to court for malpractice, and I will find out if I'm insane and if court's real or not. So I'm still open-minded, but I went down the rabbit hole to try to figure out why we were being dismissed in court and being treated so badly and how to make sense of my life. And this is what I came to the conclusion of: looking for signs, the application of integrity. This is not our U.S. government at all. Wouldn't it be our duty and the act of integrity to establish the evidence and awareness of that evidence that this is an administration of bankruptcy and tyrants are running it in our country, so that the conspiracies say, country. So the conspiracies, conspirators, conspiracies, I guess. So the conspiracies say, quotation, do not call me a Democrat or Republican, please. I do not resonate or associate with either. They just don't represent all of me, if you will. Unless my grandfather asked, then I'm a Republican. I don't care if you call me an independent, but don't clump me in with the other independents. I don't think like those who jump into the boxes of those categories. Unless I'm around my grandfather. And my grandparents have worked hard for everything that they've had. So, example, Black Lives Matter, defund the police, Democratic view. Police are bad and prejudiced. We want the right to screw anyone we want and change our genders because the body doesn't mean anything at all, but it means that much that we have to change it. Republicans, radical lefts don't want to work and reap for the government, and they reap from the government, and those who do, blah, blah, blah. Radical lefts that don't want to work and reap from the government. I don't know why it says in those who do too much. So, my view. I have encountered awful men and women in law enforcement, and I have also encountered the most kindness. I have dated 3 men who have been to prison with beautiful hearts, hardworking, helpful, but poor and unhealthy, once handsome, then depleted, all white men. I have mentors far more successful than me I look to for advice whom are Black and of other ethnicities. Judge Leslie Kim Smith sitting on a bench in state court, Detroit, is not white. White privilege could be the result of inner city poverty. There is a less percentage of us poor white kids in major cities being thrown in jail because the skew is ethnic population percentages. But the neglect is found in poverty. Clearly. Is this still a race war? Certainly, some of those police officers might have prejudices or racist intentions. We can't control all people. But really, you could say that our services, like the police department, even fire department, roadway systems, even our social ideas, and we should have them all. And we should have them all. Our socialist idea. It doesn't want me to write ideas for some reason. Roadway systems. After all, we are contributing to the system at large. Maybe you could opt to get rid of all of it. But humans are civilized enough to respect and take responsibility for ourselves and one another. So why on earth would you want to do that? Opt out of socialism or capitalism? I just feel to some extent violence would rise, that the problem is above this system and must be a system that is the cause of poverty, the havoc and programming of our minds, manipulating our education, experiences, and reality. Everyone, it blows my mind. I know people that make great money, they're still broke because they don't know how to count their money. So maybe it's just me. I was the poorest white person I know. Maybe other people are making a lot of money. I never could. The men I dated didn't. I don't know. At least if there was no structure in place to heal those who are sick. At least if there was no structure in place to heal those who are sick. So I must be thinking Medicaids and things like that. So why don't we put people on the ground who can heal and put unhealthy humans in a place to habitually reprogram their mind and behavior with practices that work for the betterment of mind and body? Yoga, meditation, prayer, gratitude, sobriety. There also is work, outdoor wilderness therapy, outdoor therapy. I'll say wilderness therapy. I had a friend that did that in college. That did wilderness therapy. I thought was cool. I don't mean a rehab center that constantly or consistently sees the patients, checks in 7, 8 times. The The patient checks in, sees the patient, it says patients. Now, I went to a seminar that talked about how to cure the problem of these overdoses on campuses of Western Carolina University and Southwestern Community College. They had the rehab center there, the police department there. I stood up and said, I know heroin has been in North Carolina, Western North Carolina, for more than 7 years because I had a young Kappa Alpha at Western Carolina doing it. So they said here in this seminar that people return to rehab 7 or 8 times. And so that's what I wanted to say. That I don't mean a rehab center that consistently sees the patient check in 6, 7, 8 times. Check in to return to rehab 6, 7, 8, 10 times. I'm gonna say it. I need another word. 10 times. Make it rhythmic. I just had a vision of me with tarot cards reading to the homeless. Haha, great, Christina. Let's not do that. Man, if that could be a cure. You may see Mad Medicine Woman in the future down here in Detroit reading tarot. You know I have been wanting to. Now, I say looking for signs. I'm very delicate about that. I'm not telling futures or anything. I personally will flip a card and see what's on the bottom of the card, and on the cards, and see if those symbolic interpretations represent anything physical. So, and it's fun for me looking for signs, but I don't take it, so seriously that they are correct or that I am correct. It's just for fun looking for signs. So we're on chapter 7, The Innocent Narcissist. Very good. I remember this one. I watched an amazing podcast yesterday with Jordan Peterson and somebody. I am always studying, it says blank, so maybe I'll just put Jordan Peterson, with Jordan Peterson. I am always studying, always affirming to myself that as much as I can perceive, right action is going to pay off. That there's some sort of order to this chaos. At the same time, these men were speaking of God in Genesis as being who extracts order from the vast nothing of chaos. Well, with only so much perception of our own, are we just assuming chaos out of the possibility that is nothing and what is life? So, we got a little bit of a typo. We got to clear up our thought here. That there is some sort of order to this chaos. At the same time, these men were speaking of God in Genesis as being who extracts order from the vast nothing of chaos. Yes. Well, with only so much perception of our own, are we not just assuming chaos out of the possibility that is nothing? What is life? And what is life? Are we assuming things are negative circumstances? Are we assuming chaos is negative? Maybe it's that. Are we not just assuming chaos out of the possibility that is nothing? I would rather just say, are we just assuming chaos is purely negative? I think is a better way to say that. Now, nothing scares me more than not being able to control intangible chaos of the mind and the emotions in the subjective world. Save button, just in case. Chaos of the mind and the emotions in the subjective world, the ether space, dark matter, energy, place. That's scary. Chaos of the mind and the emotions in the subjective world, the ether space, dark matter, energy, place. Now, I'm going to say, no, that's scary. You can manifest some wicked behavior from that nothingness, which ends up being quite real in the world. Yeah. I constantly ask, is this the path in terms of my teachings, the path of health, growth, peace, and truth? Gosh, I just felt some hair stand up on my arm. It was the craziest thing. I felt like someone touching me for a second. Gosh, that was strange. Because I constantly ask, is this the path in terms of my teachings, the path of health, growth, peace, and truth? So I'm like, showing my ass the last 2 weekends and blacking out the last 2 weekends. Haven't done that in years and really did bad. So, oh gosh, yeah. What is the right path for health, growth, peace, and truth was not that. So as I was saying, I believe this path to exist, and some before us, like my Cherokee elder, have spoken about in the great mythical stories told from the purpose conveying life's meaning and life's truth can be understood by empathizing with them. The stories some now have proven it with their own efforts, rewards, and joy and success. So what are we talking about here? I believe this path to exist. The path of health, growth, peace, and truth. That was taught by my Cherokee elder, Chohi, which was going to be a title of this book as well. Chohi returned to Judaculla Rock. It was a documentary I was working on in college. And it talked about lining up with the idea of health, growth, peace, and truth in this straight line. And they all ran in this straight line. It's straight and narrow. It's hard to stay on, but important we find our way back. So, hard to stay on, finding my way back. Now, I believe this path to exist, and some before us, like my Cherokee elder, have spoken about it in great mythical stories told for the purpose conveying life's meaning and life truths. We can be understood by empathizing with them. We can be understood by empathizing with them, such as the stars. I'm going to let the editor deal with that. Some now have proven it with their own efforts, rewards of joy and success by using intuition and signs, right? Through following such intuition. Sure. My favorite definition I heard by Bob Proctor: success being the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And I needed to hear that because this is my success, is my progressive realization of a worthy idea. People write books. They share their opinions in books. And I would like to share my opinion as well. And thank goodness for that, excuse my language, batshit crazy belief as in a thought you keep on thinking. Thank you, Abraham Hicks. I watched my children burn alive, and you think I give a shit about success. Why do I care to be successful? My kids are dead. They can't live on my legacy and be successful. There's another drive that keeps people going, and I associate it with who is willing to apply integrity to their lives by adapting responsibility. Otherwise, what can become of you may not just be to your own degree failure, but also resentful, miserable life. A resentful, miserable life if you do not take responsibility. Which leads me to my new profound topic, the innocent narcissist. We oftentimes think of a narcissist as to be a terrifying, frightful individual. Frightful, I would say frightful, terrifying, frightful, reconnaissance me. Now I have a chapter called Reconnaissance Me. I always loved Matthew McConaughey. I thought he sold out though with that Dean Graziosi crap and with Tony Robbins. The innocent narcissist. Interesting. So my innocent narcissist was my roommate, and he would say things in a positive tone, but it would be sarcastic. So the tone was lighthearted, but what he was saying was very sarcastic. So it's up here joking, but because it was so sarcastic and it was so dark, and you know, oh Chrissy, I don't need this place. I'll go live on the street. Chrissy, I can live on the street. I don't even need it. Everyone hates. I don't need nothing. I'm good. Ha. You're not good. You're not good. You need me, and you need yourself to pick up and not live on the streets, because you can't live on the streets. It's not real. Or giving a sideways compliment, you know, these, which he was very good at compliments, but it's not towards other men, though. Sideways compliments, you know, sarcastic compliments. So he believed in good things, but he would speak poorly. My innocent narcissist. Sometimes they have hope, but speak poorly. As my roommate, and I'm sure several people you know. I think I should explain that though a little bit as far as using sarcasm. So the use of sarcasm, using poor language to cope. And actually, in film noir, they spoke about German Jewish directors depicting capitalism with a main character like The Big Lebowski or Pulp Fiction. In Pulp Fiction, he has like a divine intervention, like there must be a purpose, you know, why we didn't just die just then. But the difference between negative talk and positive talk, depicting capitalism with depicting main characters, protagonists, depicting protagonists, refuting, and that's what they said in class, refuting capitalism with sarcasm in the workplace. I should say, I think here maybe a greater context would be resenting their role in capitalism with sarcasm, with the use of sarcasm in the workplace. And that's real. That was a real depiction. So I made my goal about 45 minutes before I start on this next chapter. It might be short though. Let's see. Reconnaissance me. It's like less than a page. And then the next chapter is why, just why. So that looks like that's going to be chapter 9. We'll call Reconnaissance me chapter 8. And that's going to be this next chapter here. We just went over chapter 7, the innocent narcissist. And Reconnaissance me. Reconnaissance, Matthew McConaughey, that hunk. The only man I'm attracted to. The man mind. The only man I'm attracted to. Besides Antonio Banderas, I wish to dance with him one day, maybe on Dancing with the Stars. My mother always said I would be on that show, and I have a great backstory now, I'm just saying. He explained to handsomely the prevalence of saying no in our lives. he explained handsomely the prevalence of saying no in our lives. He has many influential lectures, and his recent book, Green Lights, I just got on Audible. I've seen his podcast tours. If you ever need to be uplifted, this man can give you so many smiles all over your body. Smiles. Jordan Peterson, too, explains vividly the consequences of being so agreeable. He goes further to explain that our first recognition of cognition and discernment as a child is the ability to say no. No, I want this. No, I don't want that. Our ability to say no is almost the pinnacle of our most God in man, powerful with truth and mercy, sacrifice, discipline, and judgment. I want to say discernment and judgment. Shazam! Okay, I'll take it. Chapter 8, Reconnaissance Me. We're a little bit over 45 minutes. So, since we started, here we go. We're going to start on chapter 9 next time. Start here. Chapter 9, we're on page 28 out of 132. And I would like to add this book that I have written notes on what I call the tools of integrity. And these are things that I had to practice to get this far, whether it's something like honesty. Probably should add back in there sobriety. I was so against alcohol, and I had worked so hard to get out of a hard place. I really didn't believe in myself and was coping with just passing time. Never could afford alcohol before, so I'm really not happy with my coping right now. But I'm always staying busy. I'm always in the gym. So, and I thought it was interesting flipping to page, a tool of integrity, adaptability, a sign of intelligence and resilience despite adversity. So I got some good stuff in here. Humility, able to say that you're not always right. Acknowledgement of faults and shortcomings. Don't tie self-worth to ego. Value silence over unvalued noise. Strong self-control. Yeah, that's going to be one we're going to need to apply integrity. You probably need sobriety to do that. Studies show humor and intelligence is correlated. What perfect timing. Strong self-identity with humor. Very cool. So there's being able to laugh at yourself. Maybe that's a tool that you need to have. So to apply integrity, to look for signs and keep going. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. And that was the whole point of this book and me writing the book in front of you. I want to know what happens if you try. So thank you so much for being here. I feel better, even though I'm in tears, because I'm disgusted with myself in other ways, but I'm always pushing forward. So whatever you're going through, it was a very impulsive last couple weekends in the astrology, and even looking for the signs and keep, destiny and fate from my free will. And so, son of a gun. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go put my rubber bands back in now. Another discipline. Thanks. And see you for the next chapter.